Across Britain today there remain thousands of historical sites with ancient structures still standing, be it castles, churches or houses. Today, many of these ancient structures remain intact thanks to the time and dedication given by skilled craftsmen to make sure that the ancient buildings of Britain remain for now and future generations. From the Roman invasion of Britain through to the Saxon, Normans and medieval period, the buildings of Britain were constructed from timber, stone and even the good old brick. Well, here on Rambles Through History we visit many of these historical sites and buildings, and today is no exception. Welcome to episode 15 of Rambles Through History. High above the village of Barthomley in Cheshire, standing on what's known as Barrow Hill, is an ancient church dedicated to St Bertoline, an 8th century prince who became a hermit following the death of his beautiful wife. A Norman church was believed to have stood on this site, built by the lords of the manor in the 12th century. However, today all that remains of that church is a Norman doorway reconstructed in the 19th century. But it's the church tower, built in the late 14th century, that tells an horrific story of massacre that took place here on Christmas Eve in 1643 and carried out by Royalist troops during the English Civil War. Welcome to Rambles Through History. The earliest rector recorded here was Robert de Chazul, and he preached here between 1303 and 1315. However, much of the church that we see today was rebuilt in the 15th century. St Bertoline's church stands on high ground, thought to be the remains of a Neolithic and Bronze Age burial site. It gives the building a wonderful elevated position looking down on the surrounding village of Barthomley. Now, this church is considered as one of the most beautiful churches in the county, and indeed the dedication to St Bertoline is believed to be the only one in England. However, the events of Christmas 1643 were horrific, and a story remains to be told. It was a cold day on the eve of Christmas 1643 when a group of royalists was to enter the village after plundering the surrounding countryside. The plundering royalists were to stumble upon 20 villagers who had taken refuge in the church here behind me. Fearing the worst, these 20 villagers came here to the church looking for safety and protection. However, the royalist troops approached, and before long they took control of the church. In blind panic, the 20 men took to the church tower and ascended the steeple in the hope of escaping the royalists. However, this was to prove their undoing. Immediately, the troops began to pile up benches, mats, rushes and anything flammable that they could lay their hands upon. These were quickly lit at the base of the tower, and it was only a few minutes before the smoke was bellowing and rising into the upper parts of the tower and steeple. The villagers pleaded for their lives as the smoke and flames licked up, and the steeple and tower was filled with smoke. Major Connaught was feeling generous, and on this occasion he allowed the 20 men to come back down. However, once Connaught had control of the 20 villagers, he stripped them all naked and then murdered 12 men. This was against the laws of arms and nations. But Major Connaught didn't stop there, and not only did he slit the throat of one Mr. John Fowler, he then took his troops into the village and plundered for the next 2 days. But to be fair to Major Connaught and the royalist troops, it was true that the villagers were armed, and John Fowler, the rector's son, foolishly fired on the soldiers from high above the tower, killing one of their number and provoking this revengeful attack. But at the end of the Civil War, this tragic event wasn't to be forgotten, and had King Charles decided to plead at his trial in Westminster Hall, then this would certainly have been one of the charges brought against the king. There's no doubt that the events that took place here in 1643 highlight a very dark period in British history. While St Bertoline can tell us far more about its ancient past from within, and as with all episodes of Rambles Through History, I'm going to take you inside to see some of the wonderful stone monuments and effigies from centuries past. Well, here inside St Bertoline's, I'm immediately drawn to the wonderful monuments and effigies reflecting over 600 years of history in this magnificent building. Mostly housed in the Crewe chapel, built in 1608 by Sir Ranulph Crewe to be his and his family's memorial, we find the 3 monuments of note from the 14th, 16th and 19th centuries. Sir Ranulph was a Member of Parliament and held many important positions, including Speaker of the House, King's Sergeant, Attorney General and finally the Chief Justice of the King's Bench. He was dismissed from Parliament as he refused to allow King Charles I to levy extra taxes without the consent of Parliament. Now it's here in the Crewe Chapel where we find the tomb and an effigy carved in alabaster of Sir Robert Falhurst and dated to approximately 1390 AD. Sir Robert lays here as a knight wearing armour, a conical helmet and S collar. Sir Robert served as a Cheshire squire to James Lord Audley and joined James on the battlefield in 1356 at Poitiers fighting the French. Sir Robert was renowned for his bravery and was to be knighted later by King Edward III. I find such tombs spellbinding. It's almost as though history has been frozen in time. The detail is exquisite and it's a reminder of our ancient past.
Te lucis ante terminum, rerum creator pascimus.
Of all the tombs and the effigies that I see whilst out filming for Rambles Through History, there's one in particular that I've been waiting to visit for quite some time. For this is the recumbent figure of Robert Falshurst, priest of this church between the years of 1475 to 1529. Being a Roman Catholic priest, it was decided that it would be prudent to hide away his tomb at the time of the Reformation to protect it from destruction by the Puritans. The tomb was hidden in a recess within the wall and covered over. In the 19th century, it was rediscovered by workmen carrying out renovations. Keen to see what they'd found, they decided to wash the effigy with water and a scrubbing brush. However, as well as the dirt, they unfortunately also removed the coloured paint in which it had been embellished with in 1529. But it's here in the centre of Crewe Chapel that we find the beautiful white marble figure of Sybil Marcia, first wife of the second Baron Houghton. Married to the second Baron Houghton in 1880, she sadly died just 7 years later at the tender age of just 30. This beautiful marble figure is the work of Sir Joseph Boheme, who was also the sculptor to Queen Victoria. I think you'll agree that it's a stunning piece of art in its own right, whilst at the same time being a wonderful tribute to such a beautiful young woman. St Bertoline's tower ceiling, just above me, was fully restored just a few years ago and new painted bosses were created. 16 bosses were added in total and represent St Bertoline, the Lady Bishop, the Falshurst family, the Crewe family and the Duchy of Lancaster, to name but a few. Barthomley should be proud of its heritage and its rich history, and the church is an absolute credit to the village. Why not come and take a look for yourself? Join me again soon as we go on more rambles through history across Cheshire and beyond.